Okay, so we're here today out at 4th and Montaño to talk about pedestrian safety and also follow up on some general statements and announcements that we shared at the State of the City just a few days ago. Now, first and foremost, we know pedestrian safety is a real challenge in Albuquerque and in New Mexico. So it's never been lost on us that for a long time we have been at the top of the rankings that we don't want to be at the top of when it comes to pedestrian safety. We also know that just since last year, pedestrian fatalities doubled. That's a terrible thing for our city. That's also a clarion call for us to try and do more about it. That's what we're going to talk about here today. Now, to step back, when we think of what we're doing for pedestrian safety, we're taking a multi-pronged approach. We instituted last year automated speed enforcement. This has to do with all the speeding that's happening. As a heads up, we are almost doubling the number of cameras over the summer. More details on that to come when they're being rolled out. We also rolled out the Speeding Has a Name campaign to try and make sure that people understand that we humanize the victims of some of these tragic incidents and who they are, little children, families. And so we continue to be committed to that. We also continue our work with Vision Zero, which is about the built environment and making sure that we have, whether it's different kinds of signaling like you see on lead and coal, rest in red, or it's different sort of curb bulb outs and road diets and all these other design factors that I think people are very familiar with, even roundabouts. Now we also know that we have a problem on our medians. And for us, these pose a significant danger. Way too many of our pedestrian fatalities have been on super busy intersections and have been from a person either going to or coming off a median. So we also know that council, with our support, did vote near the end of last year to institute some pedestrian safety initiatives around medians that are smaller than 4 feet. And so again, this is where the number one issue is about safety, also for the drivers. We've all been there at night in Albuquerque, driving, scared about pedestrians jumping in front of us. This happens all over town, and it's no different for me or anyone else. And a lot of it has to do with our intersections where people are standing in medians. So what we're sharing today is what APD is going to work on to enforce these laws to save lives of both the pedestrian and also the driver. Now, we're beginning this enforcement on about 15 intersections across the city. Now, I want to touch on that. These intersections in the city, the chief will explain, they have the highest incidents in general and complaints and so forth. They're also extremely busy, so they're very dangerous. Also, I know others are saying, well, why only 15? There are a couple of reasons. Number one, remember, like everything law enforcement and public safety, resources are not infinite. We have to focus. Our number one priority for officers is dealing with violent crime, and that is not going to change. But in these particularly dangerous intersections, we do need to enforce these laws. And this intersection behind us is maybe a foot wide. A lot of our medians are not made for people. They're made to divide traffic, or they're made for an emergency refuge for a pedestrian who's actually crossing the street. They are not made for people to stay on those medians. And so that's what these intersections have in common. And so I also want to mention that we've had signs up for now some time on these medians that say that they're part of the new ordinance. And so people have been on notice on these. You can't see them because they're literally on the median. But if you want to carefully get out there, or we can send you a picture, you can see. So it's no surprise to anyone that you're not allowed to stand on these medians. So with that, I'll hand it over to Chief Harold McNeil.
Thank you, Mayor. In this area that we're at, you can look behind us and you can see that the median is very narrow. It's not made for an individual to be there. Like Mayor stated, these medians were built to either divide traffic or to give refuge to somebody who may get stuck in the middle of the road. These are not meant for pedestrian traffic. They're not meant for people to stay in. And last week we began the process of slowly warning individuals. Each area commander was noted and put on notice to make sure that their officers were going by and giving just friendly warnings to individuals who were in these medians and telling them to basically look down. There's a sign indicating you shouldn't be standing here and that you need to move along. No citations were issued because there is a period of time where we wanted to give warnings. Since last year, we've seen a 30% increase in traffic citations. And what did that equal for us as a department? Well, if you look, vehicle traffic accidents last year, vehicle to vehicle and fatalities were down. We were able to make progress by enforcing and stepping up traffic violations. We've also seen the same in a lot of other areas where we've increased enforcement and we see a reduction in crime. And we're hoping that we could slow down what we're seeing as very troublesome, a doubling of pedestrian fatalities on Albuquerque streets this year. And we're hoping by moving these individuals and by focusing on the biggest intersections, the intersections with the most traffic, the narrowest medians, that we'll be able to accomplish this. So we're going to continue to work through this. The possibility we could add more intersections later, but the first step is these 15 intersections that have been identified to each commander, and that each commander will have to ensure that their officers are working to clear individuals out of these intersections. So that is our goal. Yesterday alone, 14 citations on the first day of the operation were issued, and we're hoping that we will continue, but in all, we hope that people reduce their use of these medians and that we actually see a reduction in citations. So that's what the end goal is. Thank you.
Does anybody have questions?
Yeah, just I want to mention two things just to emphasize. You know, individuals are warned first. There's also been signs, and if they're interested in services, that's always offered as well as part of this.
Kate?
Project.
It's a little hard.
I saw
Project.
low, sorry. It's in regard to pedestrian theft, so we get that, you guys are tackling that, but I also feel like it also raises the question of panhandling restrictions in the city, which is also shot down. There's some claimants that go hand in hand as well, but not without like specifically pointing anyone out, but that's also an issue too, because I know you stated, you didn't say specifically panhandling, but there are some issues or at times when we're driving at night, and all of us are afraid who's going to jump out or whatever the case may be, but does that also go in there with that too?
You know, I think the best way to address that is there's a variety of people who use the medians. I mean, it just so happens if you look down right now on the other side of the sidewalk, there's somebody waving a sign. So this accounts for anybody. The goal of the Albuquerque Police Department is simple. This is to focus on the median and the fact that these medians were not built for people to be standing in, and regardless of why they're standing there, this ordinance will be enforced and officers will ask them to leave the area.
What's the penalty?
It's a typical misdemeanor that will go through Metro Court. Generally, it's under $500 in less than 90 days.
Just want to mention on those court cases too, the city lost two panhandling laws were thrown out in court, but this new one is about safety on a 4-foot median.
But
Yeah. So look, historically the city's had two laws and they were both thrown out in court. And now this third law, which passed in January, is only about safety on 4-foot medians, regardless. And our legal team at least believes that that will stand up in court.
You guys,
What did each of these started for the Spanish? Sorry. I think he's going to answer this one in Spanish.
nosotros estamos haciendo esto porque esos partes del camino están muy delgaditos y nosotros no queremos que personas están ahí porque es posible que alguien puede pegarlos con un motor vehicle.
¿La penalidad? ¿De penalty?
Es posible que alguien tiene que ir para la corte y es más o menos less than $500 o 90 days in la cárcel.
You feel like this will add to the warrants that aren't priority?
You know, it could add to the warrants that aren't a priority, but each and every day we're seeing that our officers are clearing more and more warrants. We've put out the number of misdemeanor warrants cleared each week by the field. That number has increased, and individuals who may get a citation, we're hoping that we can take them in. But also at the same time, I'm hoping that a lot of other things that we've put in place, we're more involved with specialty courts. We have a better relationship with Metro Court. We're advocating for resources. One of the things that we did is we wanted to have a balance. We also asked our social service department to frequent these 15 intersections just in case there is somebody who is requesting services, so we could offer them service. But we cannot as a city be afraid to take enforcement action because it may result in another warrant being issued. We'll continue to clear warrants. We're not afraid of warrants. And we'll work our best to clear them out, but we can't simply not do anything because we're afraid it could add more warrants. En todos los lugares que nosotros van a preguntar personas a no estar, hay algo que dice que no pueden estar ahí. Y semana pasada los oficiales estaban yendo por todos estos lugares y diciendo todos que estaban ahí que no pueden estar ahí. Y luego con todas las cosas que estamos haciendo ahora, ojalá que todas las personas en Albuquerque saben que no se pueden estar ahí. No, los oficiales que están trabajando en esos lugares van a ir cuando tienen tiempo a estar cierto que nadie está en esos lugares.
How many pedestrian deaths have been caused by panhandlers standing in medians?
I don't have that exact information right now, but we could get it back to you about number of fatalities. We've had a double in fatalities, pedestrian fatalities year to date, and we got to remember that a lot of times it's not a matter of an individual who is exactly standing on, there's going to and from, that is also a concern for us.
Yes,
can you
the
guys-
one
I gave it to
showed
Rebecca.
you. Any other questions? All right, thanks guys.